So when we were young, our parents always hammered the same point home. Get a university degree, get a stable job. Oh, and don't forget to budget wisely. They told us that these three things were all we needed to be set for life. But that's not true for us anymore. Because as we all know, many countries across the world are facing really high levels of inflation, where wages rise slower than prices. And this really decreases our purchasing power. So if you've ever found yourself asking, why does my wage buy me less this year than it did last year? Or maybe even the year before that? The answer is inflation. So what can we do about it? How can young people navigate the workforce during the time of inflation? The first thing that should be considered is budgeting. Now, most of us are aware of the 50-30-20 rule, where 50% of your wage goes into necessities, such as food, water, transport, and housing. And 30% goes to your wants, such as going out with friends or getting a concert ticket. And the last 20% goes towards your savings. Now, this rule is useful in helping us determine how much to spend on what, but it has a key problem. See, it does not take into account different situations, such as varying levels in purchasing power or differences in the levels of inflation across different countries. And so the problem comes when people need to spend more than 50% of their income on essentials, or maybe may not have enough for essentials in general, leaving next to nothing for wants and savings. And this happens because, you guessed it, inflation increases the prices of essentials faster than it does for wages. And so, people spend more and more every year on their essentials and leave nothing for themselves. And how do we solve that? What can we do to alleviate our own financial burdens? Again, the first thing that should be considered when taking that into account is the monetization of skills, which is when you sell a good or service relating to a skill you have. Now, this skill can be anything, ranging from IT skills such as programming, Excel, and web maintenance, to art skills such as graphic design, or maybe even entertainment skills such as singing, dancing, public speaking, or video editing. Now, due to the world's digitized and globalized economy, young people and teens can find someone in the world who can value their freelance work. So young freelancers from around the world, especially those that live in countries where their currency has been devalued by inflation, can demand payment in other, stronger currencies to uphold their financial independence and lift the financial burden of inflation. Another thing to take into account is passive income, which is when you spend time, money, or both on a specific chosen venture and work on it until it's done and starts making sales. Now, one misconception about passive income is that, well, I can see you asking, well, it sounds amazing. What misconceptions can there be about it? First of all, some people think that you don't have to take any effort at all to make passive income, but the truth couldn't be further from what I just said. In fact, you have to spend significant amount of time and maybe even money working on your chosen venture, and then when it's done, it makes sales. But even then, even though the effort decreases, you still have to maintain it from behind the scenes to make sure it doesn't collapse. And another misconception that people make about passive income that social media often feeds us is that it has to be expensive. There are a lot of people on the internet saying that to make true passive income, you need rental properties or stock portfolios. And that can be disheartening to many young people without significant startup capital. But again, the truth is that it doesn't have to be flashy. You can get a vending machine, sell products online, such as printable portfolios, or even get money from previously uploaded videos on social media. And I know I kept saying that you don't just rely on your salary to maintain your financial independence. And that while that is true, I'd like to preface this by saying that passive income and freelance work offer an unsteady mode of payment. They don't always pay you, and they pay you different amounts depending on who buys your service or who purchases from your venture. So you also need to rely on your main mode of income, which is your main job. Now imagine this. You're a sales assistant who's been working for a year at a retail clothing store. Since you've been at your job, the quality of your work has increased. You've made more sales. The company has received more revenue because of you. And on the first week where you got your weekly paycheck, your very first wage, you saw that it didn't cover all your necessities. And you couldn't really complain because it was your first week. But now, the quality of your work has improved, and you can. You can complain now. But how do you do so? How do you negotiate your wage? Well, first of all, you calculate your value, which is your achievements, any achievements at all that you have made while working at the company, in this case, sales. And you also need to figure out your options, which are all the other opportunities you can take advantage of, in this case, other retail clothing stores. So you present both of these options to your manager professionally and allow them to make the choice. If they want to increase your wage, you can stay at the job. If they choose not to, you choose other options, other jobs. Because either way, your priority is your financial independence and to remain and to still have the right to live, to earn enough to be able to survive. And at the beginning of this talk, I asked a question. How can young people navigate the workforce during times of inflation? To answer that, this question has many parts to the answer. First of all, the wisdom our parents gave us was never wrong, it just became incomplete because of the economy we have now. And the advancements we have now are also incomplete without our parents' wisdom. So we should combine them. From our side, passive income and freelance work, and from their perspectives, your main salary and budgeting. And so, young people can survive during inflation by being financially resilient and adaptive to their circumstances. Thank you, and I hope you learned something from my TEDx talk.